The West has always been trying to keep Africa dependent, from their brutal and exploitative rule to neo-colonialism to the imposition of high tariffs on African goods, making it difficult for African countries to compete in the global market. They have succeeded in doing this because they are using some greedy Africans. This has caused African countries and leaders to find it difficult to sustain themselves. There are terrorist groups mounted in countries in Africa, so the people depend on the West for aid. The International Monetary Fund and World Bank are institutions that were designed to complement each other to help countries that were in trouble and could not get money by other means. Perhaps a country is in danger or its economy collapses. The IMF is like a lender of last resort. The World Bank, on the other hand, helps in the eradication of poverty, but they tend to give high-interest loans to these African countries, thus leaving them in debt. So in this video, we will start by briefly telling you about some of the crises that have been going on in the continent, the Coups, and what Africans need to do to stop the Western world from forcing themselves into the continent. Let's delve right in. 1. The flood in Libya. Libya is a country that is prone to flooding. It experienced catastrophic flooding on September 9, after Mediterranean storm Daniel dumped record amounts of rainfall in the northeast part of the country. The floods caused the collapse of 2 dams and resulted in a 7-meter wave of water slamming into the city of Derna, sweeping people and buildings into the sea. Official estimates suggest that around 4,000 people were killed, while more than 10,000 remained missing. The floods also caused widespread damage to infrastructure and property, with thousands of people displaced from their homes. 2. The earthquake in Morocco. On September 8, 2023, a 6.8 magnitude earthquake struck Morocco, about 72 kilometers southwest of Marrakesh, at a depth of 26 kilometers. The earthquake was the most powerful Morocco had experienced in more than a century and its deadliest since 1960. The earthquake caused widespread damage in the region, with many buildings collapsing, roads being blocked, and power and water outages. The Moroccan Interior Ministry has reported that at least 2,946 people were killed and 5,674 injured in the earthquake. 3. War in Sudan. Can we now say Africa is cursed? The war in Sudan is a tragedy that has had a devastating impact on the country and its people. This war began in 2003 when 2 rebel groups in the Darfur region took up arms against the Sudanese government, accusing it of discrimination and marginalization. The government responded with a brutal counterinsurgency campaign that involved widespread human rights abuses, including massacres, rape, and forced displacements. 4. Burkina Faso crisis. Burkina Faso is facing a growing security crisis due to the activities of jihadist groups such as the Islamic State in the Greater Sahara and Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb. These groups have carried out numerous attacks on civilians and security forces in recent years. 5. Insecurity and rising cost of living in Nigeria. This country is facing several security threats, including terrorism, insurgency, banditry, and kidnapping. These threats have had a devastating impact on the country's economy and its people. Insecurity has made it difficult for businesses to operate and for people to go about their daily lives. 6. Nepotism, plundering, and organized crime in Zimbabwe. Emmerson Mnangagwa won his 2nd presidential term in Zimbabwe and was sworn in on September 4. President Mnangagwa appointed his son and nephew to key government posts. This has brought up debates in Zimbabwe, with people saying he is trying to bring back family rule back to the country. Moving away from this, a senior diplomat in Zimbabwe, known as Hubert Angel, has agreed to launder more than $1 billion in cash. He was recorded by undercover journalists from Al Jazeera in a meeting he thought he was doing with Chinese criminals. Angel is also a preacher and claims to have the gift of prophecy. President Mnangagwa appointed him, so the gold mafia in Zimbabwe could be run by them. Let's see how he will prophesize himself out of this. 7. Dictators across Africa. Heraclitus, a Greek philosopher, once said, "Change is the only constant in life." He clearly wasn't talking to the presidents of the African continent. Some countries in Africa have presidents who have been in power for many years and are still planning on running for the next term of office. President Teodoro Obiang Nguema Massogo has been in power since 1979. He is the longest ruling head of state in the world and has been accused of human rights abuses and corruption. Why is it always Africa? If you believe in God, you will probably be thinking God is doing these things intentionally just to wipe out the African continent from the world. Hope you are enjoying this video. Encourage us to keep creating content like this for you by liking this video and subscribing to the new tourist channel. Do not forget to turn on notifications so you get notified whenever we upload new videos like this. Let's continue. Hate. Anglophone Crisis in Cameroon. The Anglophone Crisis in Cameroon is an ongoing armed conflict between the Cameroon Armed Forces and Ambazonian separatist rebel groups, part of the long-standing Anglophone problem. Following the suppression of 2016 and 2017 protests by Cameroonian authorities, separatists in the Anglophone part of the country launched a guerrilla campaign and later proclaimed independence. Within 2 months, the government of Cameroon declared war on the separatists and sent its army into the Anglophone regions. 9. Boko Haram in Nigeria, Chad, and Cameroon. Boko Haram has carried out several attacks in Nigeria, Chad, and Cameroon, including suicide bombings, mass shootings, and kidnappings. The group has also been responsible for the deaths of thousands of people, including civilians, soldiers, and police officers. The fight against Boko Haram is complex and difficult. The group is well-funded and well-armed. 10. Jihadists in the Sahel. Jihadists have been active in the Sahel region of Africa for many years. They are often affiliated with groups such as Al-Qaeda and ISIS. They have carried out several attacks in the region, including suicide bombings, mass shootings, and kidnappings. They have also been responsible for the deaths of thousands of people, including civilians, soldiers, and police officers. 11. Tuareg rebels in Mali. Tuareg rebels in Mali have been fighting for autonomy or independence in the northern region of Mali, known as Azawad, for decades. They have long felt marginalized by the Malian government, which is dominated by the southern Bambara ethnic group. The United Nations has deployed a peacekeeping mission to Mali, and the European Union has provided military training and support to the Malian army. However, the international community has been unable to bring about a lasting peace agreement between the Malian government and the Tuareg rebels. 12. Insecurity and instability in DR Congo. Conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo has been ongoing since the 1990s. Since the beginning of the year, the civilian population has been severely affected by violence and brutal attacks perpetrated by non-state armed groups in eastern DRC, resulting in loss of life, mass displacement, and increasing instability. 13. Poverty in Burundi. Burundi is one of the poorest countries in the world, with over 87% of the population living below the national poverty line. Isn't this terrible? This country has experienced several civil wars and coups over the years. This has created a climate of uncertainty and instability, which has made it difficult for businesses to operate and for people to invest in the future. Burundi also has a weak and ineffective government. 14. Rising anti-France sentiments across Africa. In recent years, criticism of France's policies has been accompanied by violent demonstrations in Chad, Mali, and more recently, Burkina Faso. These anti-France sentiments have manifested in a variety of ways, including protests, boycotts, and attacks on French targets. In February 2023, the Burkina Army announced the end of the French Sabre Force in the West African country. The widespread outrage over the protracted violence in the central Sahel and the failure of Western powers to help address it has opened the door for the military to oust elected civil governments. With all these happenings, we can indeed say Africa is a troubled continent. Coups d'etats in Africa. There have been a series of coups in West Africa in recent years, including Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, and Guinea. Why is this so common in the African continent? Many of the governments in West Africa are weak and corrupt, which has eroded public trust and created an environment in which coups are more likely to occur. They also have a history of political instability, which has made them more vulnerable to coups. These coups have led to political instability, violence, and economic disruption. They have also undermined democracy and the rule of law in the region. France is playing a major role in supporting these coups because they have a strong economic interest in Africa, and coups can disrupt the flow of investment and resources. We cannot talk of coups without mentioning the fake coup happening in Gabon. Ali Bongo was overthrown by his cousin Brice Nguema. This shook the internet, as a video of Ali Bongo circulated in which he was asking for help. Many people have condemned this coup, saying it was just a strategy for the Bongo family to remain in power. We have videos of all these coups in our channel. Links have been provided in the descriptions. Make sure you watch them to get the full story. France also has a strategic interest in maintaining a strong military presence in Africa, and coups can provide an opportunity for France to increase its influence in the region. What are the African leaders doing? Are these leaders just sitting and waiting for the next country to fall victim? All African leaders should be able to rule their countries, as Ibrahim Traoré is doing in Burkina Faso. Traoré has made fighting terrorism a top priority. Burkina Faso has been facing a growing insurgency from jihadist groups in recent years, so he launched a new military operation against terrorist groups in the north of the country. He has also reached out to neighboring countries for help in combating terrorism. He has promised to address the economic problems that Burkina Faso is facing. The country is one of the poorest in the world, and Traoré has said that he wants to create jobs and improve living standards. He has also pledged to reduce corruption and improve the efficiency of government. Traoré also released some political prisoners and has promised to hold free and fair elections in 2024. If all leaders are to lead with an example like this, then how is Africa going to be troubled? The average African needs to do a lot to stop the West and all their cunning ways. The more you know about the past, the better equipped you will be to understand the present and to work for a better future. So they need to educate themselves about the history of Western imperialism in Africa. They will also have to support African-led organizations that are working to promote peace, justice, and human rights. There are many of these kinds of organizations across Africa, and these organizations need their support to be able to deliver. There is also a lot of misinformation about Western propaganda, and Africans should stay away from it. Africans need to be critical of the information they hear and see on social media. Always check the source, their agenda, and why they are sharing it. It is better to get news from a variety of sources, including African-owned and operated media outlets. This will help them get a more balanced perspective on the news. Africans also need to stop blaming the West and start to hold their corrupt and greedy leaders responsible. At the same time, they also have to work together with good leaders. Patriotic citizens have to invest in their countries and create more opportunities instead of trying to run away from their countries so that they are self-sufficient and able to mitigate the aforementioned crisis. Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso said that African countries have no tangible reason to have hunger as a problem, as the continent is blessed with fertile soil everywhere. This is very correct. We strongly believe Africa is rich and capable of stopping the crisis of hunger in the continent. African countries need to work hand in hand. To be able to stop insecurity in Burkina Faso and Nigeria, they can share intelligence and security information with Nigeria to help the Nigerian government track down and apprehend terrorist groups and other criminals. They can also provide training and equipment to the Nigerian military and police forces. Just like how the African Union established a regional security force to counter the Lord's Resistance Army, a rebel group that has terrorized parts of Central Africa for decades. Concerning the earthquake that recently occurred in Morocco, African countries can provide humanitarian aid to Morocco, such as food, water, shelter, and medical supplies. This aid can be provided through government channels, NGOs, or private donations. They can go as far as helping them reconstruct some of their buildings, but most African leaders are instead interested in embezzlement rather than creating allies. How can you be the president of a country and your son and nephew are holding top spots in the government? African countries should help Zimbabwe strengthen its institutions, such as the judiciary, the civil service, and the media. This will make it more difficult for nepotism to flourish. Kwame Nkrumah spoke about the unification of Africa, but it fell on deaf ears. Nkrumah worked to promote African unity and cooperation. He was a founding member of the Organization of African Unity, OAU, which was established in 1963 to promote African solidarity and economic development. He also supported the formation of the United States of Africa, a single African state with a common government and currency. Nkrumah was overthrown in a military coup in 1966. He died in exile in Guinea in 1972, and the dream was lost. Africa needs a Nkrumah for the continent to become untroubled. We have come to the end of this video. What do you think could be done for Africa to be self-sufficient? We will be glad to get your opinions in the comments below. Do not forget to like this video, share it with friends and families, and subscribe to the New Tourist channel. Also, turn on notifications so you get notified whenever we upload interesting videos on facts about Africa like this. Thanks for watching, and see you in our next video.